All right, you guys, we are going to go over our coaching call today, and it's going to be on intermittent fasting. What I do want to do though is we're going to change up kind of how I do this, and I'm going to have a little share screen presentation to kind of keep me on track and on task. And then I'd love feedback from you guys that are live in here, maybe at the end, of if you like this more or less than me just kind of rambling on and chatting into the camera. So I guess that'd be for you, Tyler and Ryan. Whenever we finish up, I'll ask you how that went. So I'm gonna share this real quick. Let me see. It should be like that. Boom. Can everybody kind of see this big presentation screen? I'm trying out Canva. Okay, thanks, Tyler. Appreciate it. So basically what we're going to talk about today is intermittent fasting. So real quick, what is it? Intermittent fasting essentially is identifying not what you're eating, but when you're eating. So it's an eating pattern that's based upon time windows versus a calories in, calories out. And it can be super, super beneficial for some people, and it doesn't work for everybody. So just leading with the caveat of, some people use intermittent fasting and love it. Some people try it and they hate it. Some people, it doesn't work for them for various reasons. And we're going to kind of dive into all those things right here together. And then hopefully I can answer any questions for you guys that are live here on the call. So immediately you're like, okay, sweet, we can have time windows to eat, but what makes intermittent fasting good, or could it be for me, or for you, I guess, in this case. Intermittent fasting is going to be super beneficial for certain types of people, and we're going to batch those into these, I'll call 7 categories. People that are looking for a weight or fat loss program sometimes find that it's super beneficial for them. And the reason is because it's limiting your eating window to a certain time blocks. So let's say a popular time period for intermittent fast is 8 hours of eating and 16 hours of a fast. So in that 8 hours, you're allowed to eat, all of your macronutrients in that time. And what it does is it isolates you and basically bookends your day to where you're not going to eat before, and then you're not going to eat after that point. So what it does is in that fasting time, it allows your body to burn the storage fat for energy, and that helps you burn some more fat in your workout regimen. If you have an insulin sensitivity, this is another group of people that would be, this could be advantageous for them to do. Sorry, my throat's getting dry. I'm talking too much. What this can do, intermittent fasting can essentially improve your insulin sensitivity, which helps your body use insulin more effectively. So a lot of times what happens is your body can have a more regulated blood sugar level, which reduces your risk of type 2 diabetes. So sometimes if you have a sensitivity to insulin, this can help you reduce your risk for becoming a diabetic, which a lot of people have found pretty stout results on. Another thing is cellular repair and autophagy. I don't know if I'm saying that right, and I'm not a doctor, so take that for what it's worth. Essentially what it does is when you're fasting, we can call your body goes into like a more rest and digest period, or rest and digest zone. So your body knows like gas pedal for digesting food, and then brake pedal for when you're going to be eating. And when that's happening, your body's able to repair those damaged cells as well as muscle tissues to help you with your cellular health and overall longevity, and sometimes even promote additional muscle building and strength in those periods too. We've got heart health in general is another one that's super big. There's some studies that suggest that intermittent fasting can essentially lower your levels of triglycerides, LDL cholesterol, inflammatory markers, and then reduce the risk of heart disease. All those things to say that if you're someone who has a risk of any of those things in your family, sometimes having a really, really pointed intermittent fasting protocol can help you reduce the risk of general heart disease. your brain health and brain functionality. Intermittent fasting can support brain health by promoting the production of brain-derived neurotropic factors, which essentially is a protein that's linked to your mood and your brain function. So sometimes if you have a point in time where you're like, hey, my mood is up and down, if I'm someone who suffers from mood swings, or if I'm somebody who hits that wall at like, I don't know, my wall is probably at like 1 or 2 o'clock where I'm like, this fucking workday is just exhausting. Sometimes someone who prescribes by an intermittent fasting protocol will be more comfortable in that and able to push through that mood swing and or cognitive function wall that basically you'll hit at that, terrible midpoint of the workday. There's been some tests for like longevity in general. Animal studies typically, I don't know how many of these have moved over to the human realm, but they show that intermittent fasting essentially could extend your lifespan and improve overall health in general. These are, intermittent fasting isn't something that is like, hey, this is science that's been backed for X amount of years, right? A lot of these studies and research have just started to pop off and within recent history, especially in the health and wellness space. So realizing that a lot of times that testing starting in animals and then moving over to humans is going to be the way that it goes. But in the event that some animals find that helps improve their lifespan and overall health, we are mammals and animals at the end of the day. So I'm willing to bite off on that personally. And the biggest thing, and I'd say, is that it's group 7, and probably where I fall in, is a simplicity and sustainability of that. So intermittent fasting doesn't require like a specific meal plan or, calorie counts going crazy. It basically gives you the window when to eat, and then you're basically able to hit that macro goal and calorie goal that you hit or that you set out for yourself based on that time eating window. So a lot of times it basically depends on how your day is formulated, what your work is, what your home life is, to be able to incorporate an intermittent fasting protocol. But in general, it's really simple to be like, hey, from these 8 hours a day are the only times I'm going to eat, and these 16 hours I'm not going to eat anything. I'm just going to drink water. It makes it pretty cut and dry. Next one, I'll talk about why intermittent fasting may not be for you. So there's a couple medical conditions that could lead to intermittent fasting being a bad idea. So if you're somebody who's diabetic and taking insulin, you need to be cautious if you're intermittent fasting. Essentially what it can do, it can throw off your blood sugar levels because your body's like taking all this energy to break down all this food all at once. And then it's like all gas, no brakes. So people with diabetes should be super cautious when they're doing it, if it's something that they want to try. Another thing too that a lot of people don't really talk about is the fact that some people have eating disorders, and when you're starting to introduce a time window of 8 hours for you to eat all this, then you're going to go into nothing for 16 hours. It could lead to binging, could lead to anorexia or bulimia. Those types of things and unhealthy behaviors is definitely the wrong direction, not what we want to go towards. So if you have an eating disorder, sometimes intermittent fasting is not going to be for you. If you're a female and you're pregnant or breastfeeding, obviously you're, creating another being. It's super tough for you to ensure that you're getting the right amount of nutrients to the baby that you need to get to. And then also if you're breastfeeding, it's really hard for you to have the milk production and make that sustainable for the whole time that you're breastfeeding as well. Certain medications too are going to be something that require regular food intake. So, most of the times a prescription is going to be like, hey, you must take with food or whatever. And if it says you need to take it 3 times a day or whatever with food, then it's really hard if that's an 8-hour window for you to hit that goal for your medication. So that's another thing to keep in mind. If you are have a high physical activity level, I would say that none of us are in this, I'll call elite physical activity level realm. But essentially what that is going to be, that's going to be like a professional athlete who needs to like be in this position where they're like burning all day long and they're like taking in like 10,000 calories and they're, training for a some sort of crazy race, an Ironman. That's what I would kind of call that like high physical activity level, that person. Somebody else could not, someone with chronic stress. Sometimes if you don't have food as well as you're super, super stressed out, it may not benefit you to have the additional stress of being like, hey, I can only eat in these 8-hour windows and I can't eat outside of that. And just adapting to a new eating pattern can be kind of tough. If you struggle from a sleep disorder, sometimes that can also mess with your body. So you can potentially disrupt your sleep, which obviously is super, super important and essential for your recovery. So if you have a sleep disorder, definitely something you should be cautious about if you're going to get into the intermittent fasting world. Someone with an inconsistent lifestyle, I realize a lot of us have that. But more so like this is talking about somebody who's traveling like coast to coast or overseas, and they are like on a plane and then they're like off and then they can't really plan things out in any way. So I'd say like a lot of people that have that crazy lifestyle of the travel, especially those people would be someone who it would be kind of tough for them to adhere to an intermittent fasting protocol, something that you can get around, but obviously it's going to be a client by client or person by person basis for you to succeed. Next one's going to be digestive issues. So if you have IBS or irritable bowel syndrome, stomach problems, that's all going to be linked to your food intake and kind of when you're eating as well as what you're eating. So being aware that if you have IBS, it might be something that's difficult for you to do. And then at the end of the day, it's going to come down to your individual preferences and some goals that you have in your workout routine and regimen in general, whether intermittent fasting is or is not right for you. So real quick, I just want to talk why I intermittent fast, hit a couple of these points. Essentially, I intermittent fast, like full disclosure, it's something that I do. But the reason that I do is because I work out in the morning and wake up relatively early. And for me, I don't want to like eat a bunch of food and then go to the gym because then I'm feeling like heavy and I like drag the whole time I'm there. So what I'll do is I'll wake up in the morning like around 4:30 or so, and I'll drink like a bunch of water, and a green supplement. The AG1 supplement is what I typically take. And then I'll read for a little bit and then I'll go to the gym from 5 to 6. And then when I get back, I'm not super hungry because I just worked out and my body's like, I'm not super hungry yet. So I'll make a protein shake and bring it with me to work. And usually I'll end up breaking my fast around like 9 o'clock or so, and drinking that shake when I get there and then eating like a snack or lunch around 10 or 11. And then I typically try and finish dinner up, relatively early because I'm in bed early like an old man. The big things too that I want to point out is like your circadian rhythm is something that is really important for this. So your gut speaks to your circadian rhythm through like your nervous system. So imagine like you're somebody who's going, you go to sleep or it's late at night, right? And the sun's down. Your body immediately will put itself into a rest and digest state when you lay down in bed. So like, hey, your body's like, okay, Tyler, I'm done eating for the day. I'm going to go lay down and sleep because the sun's down and I know this is when I need to go to bed. Well, if you start to introduce food into that, you start to eat at like 10 or 11 o'clock at night right before you go to sleep. Your body's like, whoa, 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 what the hell are we doing now? So now it's going, instead of digesting what you already have, it's going to start trying to break down what you just took in. And now you're sending your body different signals. So it's something that I've found personally, that I'm able to burn through the calories from the previous night's dinners in the morning and then start taking something new in the next day. And at the end of the day, the most important part of it is that it works for me. It works for my body, works for my lifestyle. It's something that I've tried and found a way to incorporate. And honestly, it makes my food and eating decisions simpler and allows me to have the flexibility during the day that I need to make sure that I'm hitting my own calorie and macronutrient goal. So a couple of big takeaways. Knowing your body is super important. If you haven't investigated intermittent fasting, maybe you can look into it. Understanding how your workout and lifestyle may be improved or affected from the shift. So understanding like, hey, if I decide I'm going to try out intermittent fasting, do I need to start doing a workout in the morning, or should I shift to like a mid-afternoon workout? How does that kind of shape around your day? It's something to consider. And then also knowing your goal is really important, right? So let's say you're somebody who's looking to put on a bunch of muscle mass. It's going to be really hard for you to do that in an 8-hour window if you're not someone who eats a decent amount already. So if you're like, hey, I need to eat 3,000 calories and I need to be in a calorie surplus, or else I'm not going to hit this goal, then you know that you're going to have to expand that eating window, make sure that you're available for longer, so that you can hit that caloric intake that you need. You guys have any questions real quick about any of those things, the people that are still here?
Yeah, Blaze, I had one question.
Sure, hit me.
So I think either like I was told this at one point or like read this somewhere that like it's important that you like drink a shake after like you do a workout. I don't know if it came from like Coach Shakira back in the day or like, hey, you got to hit your protein like within that hour window. What's your take on that in terms of like intermittent fasting, and like is that a myth? Does it help? Does it hurt?
So, what I'll tell you is the thing that I found is most effective is when you're doing something that you can repeat, a pattern that you can repeat. Most importantly is that you're getting all the nutrients in on a day-to-day basis, and it's something you can stay consistent with. There's a ton of research that talks about, anabolic window and all these other things. That's like, your muscles are broken down right after workout. So if you slam chocolate milk or you have a protein shake, this is when it's going to be the best time for your body to recover. And I'll say there's probably research that supports both that point and also the point of like, hey, have it right before you go to sleep, because that's when your body's in rest and digest, and that's when it'll repair all the muscles in the body. So I found a way to kind of hit both pieces, right? I'm not doing it right after personally. I'm not doing it right after a workout. It's probably like 2-3 hours later, but it also is what begins my breakout from the fast. And I found personally that schedule, that breakdown of my day works best for me, because I'm not hungry right before I go to the gym. I'm not hungry directly after, but around 9 o'clock, I'm like, ooh, now I've been up for like 5-6 hours and I'm looking to have something. So I say like, I'm not saying that as a cop out answer by any means, but it's kind of going to depend on what you do and how you can craft it into your day, because I'd rather get a protein shake every single day right before you go to sleep than you do it, once or twice a week just after a workout. And then you're going to basically start having your body do one of these numbers because we're not getting used to that new equilibrium, if that makes sense, for a sustainable change.
Yeah, makes complete sense.
What's up, Ryan?
Maybe a question, advice. So I mean, a number of years ago, I think I tried this as a knee-jerk, uneducated reaction to, for unrealistic quick results.
Right.
And it didn't go well, like most things that you have unrealistic expectations for. How would you recommend somebody like work into that routine? Like, what is that is it going to be different for everybody, or is there like maybe an archetype plan you have to shorten that, or sorry, lengthen that fast window, from you're working a day or two to a couple weeks because I don't think for a lot of people it's very sustainable to jump right into an 8-16.
For sure.
Start with a 12 and then we shrink by week to acclimate the body to extending those fasts. Or do we try to jump in and shock it, and now you're walking around hungry for last 4 hours of your day for a week and miserable?
For sure. Yeah, so I love the point. And I'll say my intermittent fast protocol isn't even in 816. So I know that's kind of like what it's easy to, I think somebody just decided like 24, what goes in at 24, what's evenly divisible by 24 and how many hours do you sleep? And they're like, oh, fuck it. Let's just do like at 816. I think that's kind of how the initial reaction would be to create that. So what I'll say is mine, I think, I said usually I'm having my shake around like 9 or 10 and I'm done with dinner by, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 at the latest. So my eating window is actually a little bit larger. But again, I've formulated that to fit into my lifestyle. So I'll say the way to baby step into it is to really analyze your day and be like, okay, my day may be kind of erratic sometimes, but most days, if you go in at, 8 o'clock in the morning, and if you did your workout right before you went into work, or even if you did it right after, you could plan when you could baby step your way into a fasting protocol where you're like, hey, after 8 o'clock, I'm going to try not to eat. But you know what? Like there's days where I'm like sitting there and I'm watching like Ted Lasso with the wife, and I'm like, bro, I need some fucking cereal or some chocolate or something. And I'm just like wanting it, right? Like
Food is fuel. Like
yeah, that's what I'm
sometimes
saying. And you can't put yourself, and I'm gonna say this all the time, especially to our people in this group, because I think that you guys all need to hear it just like I do too, is you can't always put yourself in this box of perfection. It's like we strive to do this. We strive to hit a calorie count of 2,200 or whatever that puts us in a deficit. We strive to get 200 grams of protein in a day. We strive to hit a workout where we're picking up 22 pounds instead of 20 pounds, or we're getting the 25s in the gear swings instead. But realistically, if our body or something else is giving you the cue that like it ain't it today, you need to listen to that, and you need to understand that's happening for a reason. And sometimes it's going to be a little bit of discomfort that you can push through, but sometimes it's going to be like, you know what? Eat the fucking ice cream bar, bro. Do the thing that's going to make you feel good, because at the end of the day, the way that you're on track and the way that you're progressing, even if you have that one thing, is not going to throw all of your results out the window. You're already doing consistently a ton of the work that you need to. And that one, we'll call hiccup, which really it's not. It's just called moderation, which all of life is about, by the way. You have to be able to give that win to yourself. You got to be able to do it. And personally, I think if you find a way to work it into your routine and your schedule to hit it, 60, 70% of the time, and you make it work for your lifestyle, then you're going to win in the intermittent fasting world.
sorry. Nice.
Yeah, cool, man. Tyler, you have anything else while you're on, or Ryan, either of you guys?
I don't think so. I think that was my
Cool. And if either of you, and then anybody else who ends up listening to this later, if you guys want to chat about like, hey, this is kind of how my day typically looks. Here's when I like to work out. Here's when I like to do this or that. We can chat about like, hey, a little bit of maybe recall from another one that we did where we talked hunger and thirst cues a little bit, and we can talk about how we can kind of incorporate that into an intermittent fasting protocol that kind of works for you and your family. Because I don't want you to be like, oh, I'm fasting, and then your family, like Ryan, like Rachel's like cooking dinner with the kiddo, and you're like, I can't eat now, bro. I can't sit down and have food with you guys, because that's like super, super important. Well, at least in my family it was. So I want to make sure that like if you're interested in doing something like this, we're like, hey, dinner is typically between 5 and 7, and it fluctuates a lot, but I want to make sure that this is in the window most of the time, and we can kind of craft something up that works for you. Cool. That is all I have for you guys today. Let me know, I guess. Shoot me a text or something like that. You don't have to say it now, whether you liked or disliked the PowerPoint that kind of kept me on track. I know PowerPoints are terrible, but it helped me remember a couple of things that I wanted to make sure I hit on, and some big words that I know I can't pronounce, and I wanted to make sure that you guys saw how hard they were to say on the screen too. So let me know if you guys have any questions, and we'll see you next week. See ya.
That was good, man. Take care.
Thanks, Lloyd. See ya.